What is up, guys? G here, back with another video for you. So half of you guys wanted an update video on Robinhood's earnings and what to expect going forward. So today we have a lot to cover. Robinhood had a crazy last 2 trading days. Earnings were on Thursday, and then Friday we had a huge post-earnings run-up. So I am going to go over some of the earnings results. They also did have an aggressive plan for 2022, so I want to go over some of those highlights as well and what to expect this year. Lastly, I will take a look at the chart for some technical analysis and also do an update on the institutional activity. So if you guys are invested in Robinhood, I definitely recommend you watch to the end for that, because that will give you guys an idea of what the big money is doing. Now, before we get started, take a second to drop a big thumbs up on the video. It helps the channel tremendously and it gets this video out to other fellow Robinhood investors. Consider subscribing if you're interested in more content like this. And with all that out of the way, let's get started with today's video. So first, I want to show you guys Robinhood's recent stock price. Friday we had a massive run up. We were up almost 10% to $12.73. If you were trading actively at all on Friday, you can see it was a talk across all social media, but that was not the case going into earnings on Thursday. We were trading around $11.60, which gave Robinhood a market cap of under $10 billion. Robinhood lowering their earnings guidance going into Q4 also did not help the stock price, as we were trading near the 52-week low, so not very good earnings were expected. So even though the stock did come down about 10% after earnings, some of that was already priced in, and we'll talk a little bit about that in just a bit. So moving over to the Robinhood earnings, Yahoo actually broke this down very nicely. Robinhood reported a loss of about 49 cents versus an estimate of only 42 cents per share. The revenue came in at $362 million, missing the $370 million estimate. Similar story with the crypto revenue and the monthly active users, with 48 million versus 55 in crypto revenue and 17.3 million active users versus the estimate of 19.9 users. So misses across the board, and that was actually on an already lowered guidance by Robinhood. So with all that volatility and uncertainty in the market, it was going to be a very tough quarter. And personally, I was not expecting to beat this earnings. I may have mentioned that in one of our last Robinhood videos, but I think that their first good earnings will not be until Q2 of this year, but I will get into that later in the video. Aside from them missing earnings, part of the sell-off on Thursday was actually also a poor outlook for their next Q1 earnings, which in my opinion, I think is the more important reason why the stock sold off more than 10%. A poor revenue outlook for the next quarter is not very bullish on a already missed earnings, so that definitely impacted the stock price instantly. But if you are long on Robinhood, that was a perfect opportunity to scoop up some shares. Now you are probably wondering, why did it run up on Friday? Well, I think part of the reason is most of these numbers were technically priced in. As you can see from the stock price, it has been on a sell-off since it hit like $35. Another key part in my opinion was the earnings call. Although the numbers were not very impressive, I think the investors took the time to digest the information and see a huge opportunity here. So with Robinhood trading around a market cap of 10 or 9 billion and with over $6 billion in cash, that also makes Robinhood a great acquisition target from some of the bigger players like PayPal or Square. So I think that some of the investors really like the financial position that Robinhood is in and see tons of opportunities with their platform. Looking at Robinhood from a full year perspective, they actually did not perform terribly. They had a total revenue of 1.82 billion compared to 959 million from last year, which is a 89% increase. Their transaction-based revenue increased 95% to 1.4 billion from 720 million last year. Their options revenue increased 57% from 440 million to 689 million. Also, their crypto increased from just 27 million last year to 419 million this year. And their equity increased to 288 million, which is an increase of 15% year over year. So from a quarter stance, they did report poorly, but from a year-to-year growth, I think they did quite well considering the market conditions. And in my opinion, again, I think that was a perfect buy the dip opportunity. 2021, in my opinion, was a very weird year for Robinhood. First 2 quarters were definitely outliers. We had the meme frenzy in the first quarter. For Q2, there was the Bitcoin rally, and then towards the second half of the year, there was a lot of uncertainty with the market, with the rise of inflations and all the Fed talk. So Q3 and Q4 were very volatile, and sometimes fear and uncertainty does scare some of the active traders, which decreases the volume activity that's traded. And I think some of that will bleed off into the first quarter of this year as well. Vlad mentioned in the call, 2021 was an investing and developing year for Robinhood, but they still did achieve some key business milestones, which I think are pretty major in my opinion. Robinhood's 2021 investments have put the company on a strong footing going into 2022. They had 22.7 million net funded accounts by the end of December, which is an 81% increase compared to last year's numbers of 12.5 million funded accounts. Their monthly active users also increased to 17.3 million as of December 2021, which is an increase of 48% compared to 11.7 million last year. Assets under custody increased 56% to 98 billion compared to 63 billion last December. Their average revenues per user did decrease this quarter though, which is actually pretty bad, but they stated that the decrease was primarily related to lower trading volumes per user for options and equities and lower interest earnings per user from securities lending due to declines in market rates earned on loan securities, but partially offset by higher trading volumes per user on crypto. One of the best reportings on here though is their cash and cash equivalents, which I think puts them in a very strong position. They had a total of 6.3 billion in cash and cash equivalents compared to only 1.4 billion last year. So they're going to be able to use this cash for more technology development, bring new features, and especially help them get through this tough time in the market, since the Fed talk, inflation, and all the rate hikes will definitely impact high growth companies. Having tons of cash on hand definitely helps Robinhood's position. I don't want to diverge too much from this, but imagine having a market cap of 9 to 10 billion and the company owns 6.3 billion in cash. That is an absolute steal as far as an acquisition, especially because the platform is very easy to use. I've been using it a lot more recently. I know there's a bad taste in some people's mouth because of what happened last year, but people will just have to get over that and realize that this is a great money opportunity. But that is just my opinion, definitely not financial advice. So yes, they had a bad earnings, but they also did bring great new products and features in 2021. They increased service reliability and uptime. They opened a 24/7 live phone support. They also added contextual in-app education, as well as give investors the access to IPO shares and give direct access to management teams via the new acquisition of Say Technologies, where investors are allowed to submit their questions, and depending on how many upvotes that gets, management can address those questions during a conference call. More specifically though, from Q4, they did deliver on product developments. They introduced the first trade recommendations, which helps new customers get started on their first trade based off of their investment portfolio. They also started rolling out the ACAT system and expect to continue rolling that out by the end of Q1. And they did announce the interest of a crypto wallet for the platform, but most of the development has been done for this quarter. Currently, they're testing the crypto wallet in a smaller circle of customers, so they're currently going through the beta phase, but they do expect a full launch of crypto wallets by the end of Q1, which is why I think Q2 will be very good for them. Once they fully roll out the crypto wallets, hopefully we have a more clear picture on regulations and they can start listing tons of other coins. In my opinion, that's going to bring tremendous amounts of volume back into Robinhood platform. The monthly active users is going to go up. The revenue per transaction is going to go up. Overall, across the board, I think some of the numbers are definitely going to improve. All that will be subject to how Bitcoin is trading, but I think Bitcoin is getting ready to go on another bull run soon. So hopefully all that lines up together very well for Robinhood. Looking further out to 2022 and further on, they have plans to create an entire ecosystem of financial products and services. Right now, they're working on delivering an even larger window of available trading hours, and they expect to roll that out later in Q1. So this will be one of several improvements that the company plans to make to the trading experience. They also want to continue improving their option experience for customers. They introduced the option alerts and options watch list, and as well as making it easier to roll out option contracts. So a good amount of catalysts coming up. The option features are great. I've started to use some of those features in some of my trading. They're also putting effort to make considerable progress into the fully paid securities lending program, and they expect to be able to launch that program during the first half of the year. I'm thinking somewhere around Q2 is when they'll probably announce that. Along with the lendings program, they also will be investing in spending and saving products. So for example, they'll be expanding on the account types like adding retirement accounts, as well as offering ways to move money faster by introducing the instant debit credit deposits and withdrawals, and that will be coming out in the next few months. So Robinhood has set some pretty aggressive goals, and one of them is going to be opening the crypto platform to customers internationally. In the conference call, although they were a little vague, they do believe there's an immense potential in crypto, and there could be a possibility of even staking some coins, but all that will depend on regulations, so still a little fuzzy in that area. But speaking about regulation, I also want to note that that is a reason Robinhood has not added some of the other altcoins. In the conference call, they said that some of the coins listed on Coinbase and other exchanges might not be fully regulated, which could cause problems for users, and they want to avoid all that, which makes a lot of sense since they are on thin ice after the meme frenzy. But once they get a clearer picture of the regulations, they do have a robust system that they will be able to incorporate all these coins rather quickly, which again, in my opinion, will bring tons of volume and buzz around the crypto space. Now, as bullish as I am for Robinhood's future, we do have to take a look at some of their current metrics and see how they will perform compared to their historic earnings. So I quickly want to go through some of these, and then we'll take a look at the chart and the institutional activity. So the first one is the cumulative funded accounts. This is how many accounts they currently have open on their brokerage. They currently have about 22.7 million. I don't really expect this one to grow tremendously in the coming quarters, aside from getting new users based off the crypto wallet. I think Charles Schwab and Fidelity, they all have around 30 million customers. So there is a little bit more upside, but as far as now, they do have around 2/3 of that. So I think the growth from here on now will be a little bit slower for this. For the monthly active users, you can see there's a huge uptrend for Q1 to Q2, and then we started kind of coming down, and that's because Q3 and Q4 were very volatile. There's a lot of fear in the market, but I do expect some of these monthly active users to go back up once the stock market stabilizes a bit and we get a clearer picture of where the market is headed, because a lot of the activity is definitely dependent on the market conditions. In a bullish market though, Robinhood will have the opportunity to get these numbers back up. Assets under custody will be highly dependent on how many users they can bring in. As you can see, for most of these quarters, the growth hasn't been very big, so the number is pretty stagnant. I wouldn't expect too big of a shift in the coming quarters. So far they're good, especially with the threats of a lot of users leaving Robinhood because of the meme stock frenzy. Currently the assets hasn't decreased too much from the Q1, but in the future I hope that they can get this back to the 100 billion digits. The total net revenues, you can see the two outliers were Q1, Q2. That's because of the meme frenzy and the crypto rally. I think some of the growth better aligns with the Q4 of last year, but once the crypto wallet launches, I do expect Q2 of this year to come back up to about 400-500 million per quarter. Currently for Q3 and Q4, they reported under 400 million, but again, I think that does have to do with a lot of traders just stepping away during the market conditions that we're in, and I see this going off into the next quarter. For their operating costs, you can see this did tremendously drop from Q3, but it is almost 3 times Q4 expenses. So this is something they definitely need to improve on. And unfortunately, they do plan to continue increasing their operating expenses. So that will be something to watch closely. So now I want to shift over to the institutional activity. Now, before I do that, I do want to add a note that one of the management officers, I think it was Jason, he said that there could be a possibility of them achieving positive EBITDA, which is actually very bullish since they did go from a positive EBITDA in 2020 down to a negative. So that will be something to also watch and could be very bullish if they do achieve that. As far as the institutional activity, I did highlight some of the bigger transactions. All the green ones are new positions open, the red ones are closed positions. Some of the bigger ones are Stanley, which acquired almost 600,000 shares. Cypress Point got over 100,000 shares. ARK Invest actually added almost 2 million shares on Friday. It's not shown here, but I highlighted them because they do have a current position of 23 million shares. And then the last big one is Evolution Wealth, which added almost 4 million shares, and that's a huge position of over $67 million. So tons of institutionals definitely stepping in, adding new positions after this last earnings call. You can see Evolution added it on the 28th. ARK Invest added those 2 million shares on the 28th. And then even leading into earnings, you can see Cypress and Stanley added shares. So that is definitely very bullish. Again, you don't really see any positions being closed. Then moving over to the short interest, funny enough, we still did get a lot of short volume. We had about 45% of the entire volume shorted. Our volume for the day was around 69 million shares traded and almost 35 million shares were sold short. So the shorts are definitely still out there. And then just to wrap up the short interest, we do have 8.16% of the entire float being shorted. So I think that has also gone up from our last video. I think we were doing around 7% the last time. Moving over to the chart, we had a tremendous day on Friday. We were trading from $9.94 up to almost $13 for the day. Our volume was also almost 70 million compared to our average volume of almost 27 million on average. So that is very bullish, more than doubling our average volume. But do take into account that half of that volume was short volume. As far as the chart goes, this is our 1 hour. We are sitting pretty nice. We were able to get back above this weekly level. Our next big test is going to come around this level here, around $13.40. And that's because we have a supply zone around this level. A lot of sellers are going to be ready to take profits at this point. So that's going to be our next big test. In my opinion, I do think we go back up and test this level around $13. Depending on how we react to this descending resistance here, we could come back down and retest this weekly level here. That, in my opinion, is going to be my short-term prediction. If we can break this resistance here in this supply zone, then our next big resistance is going to be back around $15. That's going to be a very strong psychological resistance. We have a lot of consolidation around this level, and that is also a weekly level. You can see we came down and touched it once when we were coming down. So this is definitely going to be the bigger test for us in the long term, and that will definitely indicate the trend moving forward. So that is what I see in the chart, guys, but do keep in mind we could also retest $11.50 since we have already tested it once, twice, so a third possibility would not be out of the picture. Again, our most bullish indicator will be breaking above this descending resistance, continuation of strong volume, and getting above $15. So guys, that is all I have for today's video. Let me know your thoughts on Robinhood's earnings. What are your plans going forward? Are you guys holding your shares, adding more to your position, or completely getting out? Like I said, I don't expect much from Q1's earnings, but come Q2, I definitely do see an increase in revenue because they will have more features and projects done for the customer. For example, the extended trading hours and the crypto wallet, which will also possibly bring the addition of new altcoins. So that is what I'm looking forward to. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I hope you guys learned something from today's video. If you did, make sure you smash the like button and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. I will see you guys in the next one, and as always, keep moving forward.